Good morning and happy Tuesday. It's Rachel Muleman from the Bizz Advisors, Smart Impressions, and I just want to wish everyone a happy New Year. Welcome to 2024. This is the first Smart Impressions of the year, starting off the year with a bang with the dynamics of networking with no other than one of the biggest experts in town, Mr. Phil Bedford himself. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. He is the founder of something very unique, which is called Strategic Business Connect. And so we're going to dive right in because we only have that 15-minute time slot to touch you guys in the room. I hope you have your cup of coffee because this is going to be a good one. I know at the beginning of the year, everyone's thinking about, how are we going to get this year started? I know a lot of people are prioritizing what they need to do, and networking should be number one on that priority list. What do you agree, Phil?
Absolutely. It's something you've got to be doing or find a way to do no matter how busy you get.
Absolutely. So, we started the conversation a little earlier before the show started to just talk about people are networking, but how do you know how to network? Or where to network? There's so many networking groups. And I know our listeners today are probably going, where do I start? Which is the next event I go to? And marking their calendars to really prioritize the ones that they can make the most out of. So let's just jump into that. What do you think about that? I know we mentioned the numbers have really skyrocketed since COVID. Right?
Yeah, I think people realized before COVID, people didn't really network so much. And then during COVID, they wish they could. And then afterwards, of course, everybody is. So there's a lot more networking groups in Dubai now, that's for sure. And I think one of the big challenges for a lot of people, number one, is to find out for what reason you're networking. What results, what problem are you trying to solve? So if it's salespeople, my guess is you're looking for clients, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Right. If you need sales, then what's your objective, right? Before you even go into networking. So that's important. And what are you finding when people go into networking? What are those, objectives that you're coming across? Is it just sales?
Let's say sales, right? For most people, that is the main reason for networking. But I think one of the challenges I'm finding, there's a couple. So number one, people may be networking in the wrong place. Or they don't necessarily know what to do when they're there. And I'll see this regularly, people who are turning up an event. And the first mistake I find is people are choosing the event based on the number of people who are at the event. And what I mean by that is they're choosing the events where it's 100 people, 200, 300 people, like conferences and exhibitions. And the challenge is immediately is you just can't get around all those people. Right. So what that does is encourage people to start machine gunning networking cards, which becomes very superficial and highly ineffective. So I actually prefer to help people, and I've shown how do you network in a place where there's less people who are more relevant to what you need. That means you can spend a little bit more time with them and be more strategic and actually meet everybody in the room. So the first thing I think is, where are you networking, and making sure you're meeting the right people rather than the wrong people.
Cool. Well, I was gonna start that question off, and I first want to welcome Mona's the first to say greetings from Dubai, and I invite everybody who's listening, jump in. We want to hear from you. Phil is here. Ask him the questions that you are dying to know about networking. And one of the first ones I have is really about quantity versus quality, right? Because like you said, people are saying, where's the most number of people? I'm going to go to that event with hopes that I'm going to get more conversations, more opportunity, but really maybe that's not the right decision, right?
Yeah, I think if you want to step back, actually, you've got to make, first of all, a distinction between networking and sales. Because pure networking and sales are two different things. Networking is more of a farming activity, whereas sales is obviously closing. So networking falls into the marketing space. And the first thing you are, if however we turn around and say, okay, I'm looking at networking to close sales, then really you need to look at some different statistics. And these are sales statistics. If you actually go back and look at how many times you have to speak to somebody who's actually in the market for your business. So let's say there was 100 people in the room. If all of those 100 people in the room were in the market for your product or service, how many times would you actually have to speak to every person before they would convert? And if you look at some of the sales studies, most people you actually need to speak to between 5 and 12 times before they will finally convert to a sale. So if you've got 100 people in the room and you need to speak to them 5 or 12 times, before they'll convert. What's the chances of actually having success? And what's the chances of you even getting around 100 people? So you look at exactly. I mean, you look at any event, right? How long do you actually spend talking to an individual? 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Could be more.
So how many people do you speak to an hour? 4 or 5, right? How many hours are you there? 2. So the most people you can speak to at a networking event is 12 to 20. So why are we seeking events with 100 people? Would it make a lot more sense to choose smaller groups that are the right people, have the right conversations, and then follow up in an appropriate manner? It becomes highly effective. But unfortunately, we're not told to do that. We're told to find a group of people, spam them with business cards, and then start chasing them. But unfortunately, Rachel, I think you'll agree, one of the biggest failures of most salespeople is they never follow up, or if they do, it's only once. So you never make it to the 5 or 12 touches when people convert, because you get the business card, you follow up once, nothing happened, give up, move on, and off we go. So there are some elements from sales follow-up and sales discipline that can move across into networking as well.
Wow. I do agree with that. There's no doubt that's correct. Salespeople are not following up, let alone even qualifying properly. A big good morning from the UAE. Another one from Bra. Welcome to the show, right? And we got people just jumping in left, right, and center. So it's a good topic, and it's a great way to start off the new year. I think one of the biggest challenges that I've heard is that people go to networking events and they don't leave with anything, other than a business card. Like, how do you really make networking work for you? You got your objective. You want to meet people to eventually connect with them. Now we know some numbers that make sense. You got to touch them 10 to 12 times. But not only that, you got to qualify them properly. If you're looking for revenue, if that's your objective, it's going to take a while to get there. But what should you be asking to really quantify that? And a good morning to Khalifa as well. Thanks for joining the show.
But it's so many factors. I mean, this is more like a 15-day conversation than a 15-minute. And this. So number one, the big problem I find is a lot of people in their networking, they don't actually know how to explain what they do. They've never actually been trained in how to explain what they do in a way that normal people can understand. So immediately it breaks down. If you can't explain with clarity what you do for someone else to understand, number one, they can't buy. But number two, they can't refer. And so your first step as someone who's going networking is to really learn how to explain what you do verbally. And often is a tip for you. If you've got kids, imagine your 12 or 13-year-old daughter or son was telling you what you do. You need to be that clear. So number one is the clarity of what you do. People can't do that. But the second thing is, if the only thing you're looking for at networking is a sale from every single person you meet, then it's a win-lose dynamic. So we've already established that most people won't buy on the first occasion. In fact, only 2% of people ever buy on the first occasion. So if we say, look, we can only meet 20, 25, 30 people in one session, and only 2% will ever buy on that first occasion, what's your chances of closing somebody on that first meeting? Pretty much nothing. So the point is, people are lining themselves up to fail anyway. So instead of looking to close them on the first day, what you've got to do is realize, well, hold on, this is not a one-off strategy. I've actually got to be finding ways to see these people again and again. But as well, so that's if they're going to buy. But a lot of people will never buy because they're not in the market. So if we're only looking at people as golden eggs, people we can sell to, it's win-lose. But instead, what if I look at the person in front of me and say, well, look, you may never buy from me, but if you like me, you may refer me or start connecting me to the people that you know. So if we start to look at people like golden geese rather than golden eggs, suddenly it's not just win-lose anymore. Suddenly it could be win-win, whether they buy from you or not. But then, of course, you've got to nurture that goose. You've got to stay in touch. You've got to look after them. And this, again, leads to one of the biggest challenges is people don't go back to networking events. They go once, and because they don't get success, they don't go back. Or they'll give it a second chance, and if they don't close, they don't go back. But they don't realize you've got to be going back 5 to 12 times, not just to get clients, but 5 to 12 times to get people to understand what you do, care about you, and maybe connect you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it looks like Mona's saying exactly, Phil. Be concise, genuine. Introduction ideas is a key to skill in networking. There's no doubt, and I love that you mentioned that there is, this this continual effort, but I like this golden goose, and I think it's so appropriate because right now, a golden goose versus someone who's just a golden egg is going to have a huge different impact, especially if in sales, like the ultimate goal is once you build that credibility, people are going to refer you. So if you can get that at the top of the marketing funnel through networking, just by building that, that brand allegiance or top of mind or understanding exactly what your services are and value to the market, there's going to be a huge opportunity, for you with the people that you connect with on the networking level, right? Khalifa says, I agree. One time I explained TPRM. Oh, I was like, okay, to my mom before I went to an exhibition. Maybe that's a challenge. We should be talking to our parents, so the elderly or the young kids, and see if they actually are tuned in or switched on. Not a bad idea, Khalifa. Thanks for that one. So, there's no doubt since COVID, I think that we've seen some huge changes and shifts in networking. What are some of those changes that you've seen, and how are people just adjusting after we've stopped dealing with COVID? We've kind of gone through a number of different changes.
Yeah, I mean, prior to COVID, I think everybody was face to face, and people just weren't comfortable with Zoom as a networking option. Obviously, during COVID, for those people who did embrace it online, it became a whole new world. I mean, I remember during lockdown, I met 2,500 new people and had conversations with them. So that opened up a whole world for me. And now, of course, people have left. So I think they became they got Zoom fatigue, and they're like, oh no, I don't want to do this online thing. I want to go real world networking again. So some of them have really embraced the new world again. But I think we have this dynamic now, Rachel, where we can network across borders using Zoom because it's or whatever platform over borders, which opens up a whole new thing. Or if you're in a city like Mumbai, for example, you can Zoom across the city rather than being in the traffic for 3 or 4 hours. So it opens that up, but you've got the real world as well. But I think the challenge is whatever you're doing, you need to realize that networking is not a natural skill for people. Talking is a skill. And maybe explaining a little bit about what we do and knowing what our product is, but no one's really learning how to network. And if they do, it's 20 minutes from their boss before they go, or they get a free video or something like this. And no one ever becomes an expert off a half an hour training and something. It really helps to learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
That'll be my
I bet you see a lot of people. I mean, maybe on the online digital space, it's a little bit different, but I know my own experience. It's sometimes really difficult to get into a room of strangers that you don't know, and especially if you walk in by yourself, right? So those inhibitions, that the body language changes, your confidence, may have different scaling, impact depending on who, how you are, whether it be online or in person. I mean, a whole bunch of other things come into play in the real life, and I know that with what you're doing right now, you're the founder of the local or owner of the UAE branch of Esteemed. Tell me what exactly you guys are doing and how you're helping people here in the market.
So if we look at networking, we just mentioned networking. So that's when you go out, hand out business cards and start a conversation. Okay, and that's one part of that. But then there's the whole other dynamic behind that, which is how you actually do that, like a world champion. But that's networking. You've also got direct prospecting. You've got referral marketing. You've got your brand on and offline. You've got your networking. You've got word of mouth. All of those things are not just networking, right? So there's a whole business funnel here, which is called relationship marketing, and networking is just a part of that. But for most people, that's all they do. So, I suppose a good way of explaining this would be if you've got all your different marketing channels. So you've got your digital marketing, your SEO, you've got your networking, you've got your sales teams. All of these are cars, and you'll use your off-road car for this, you'll use your racing car for that, your motorbike for this, your helicopter for that. They're all different ways of getting where you want to go, and every business has different channels to get to their clients. But at the end of the day, the really smart person has to know which one to use when and how. And then if you're going to use it properly, how do you really start to scale that efficiently? So if Strategic Business Connect, Female Fusion, BNI, SAPCO, all these are networking groups. Ascentive is which, where, how, and why. And so Ascentive is very much the strategy. How do you become the most efficient version of yourself to get results from whichever networking you're in, but not just networking? How do you develop word of mouth? How do you get referrals from clients? Oh, here's one for you. Getting referrals from clients, which is what most people focus on, is only one source of referral. There's 8 sources of referral, and most business people are focused on one. How much are they missing? And you see, that's not taught in networking. That's taught in referral marketing, which is another strategy. So there's your difference. SBC is a platform, like many of the other networks, and Ascentive this is how you make it work for you, which is what we do. And we've done it all over the world for the last 20 years.
Incredible. Well, that's why I have you on the show, because you are the expert in this space, networking. I met you, God, I'm going to say 15 years ago at an event, a networking event. Great way where we were just to stay in touch and to see how much impact and how much you've helped people in the market globally as well, around the region. So really impressive. You could see our time just hit 16 minutes, which is 1 minute over, but this conversation could go on for hours. There is no doubt. I would like to leave our community and our listeners with top 3 tips for networking that they can start implementing as soon as this show ends. What do you got for us today?
Okay, well, all of this falls into the area of education, really, which is learning how to do it. But number one, make sure you're networking in the right place for the right reasons. Okay, so know for what you want, what results you want to get, be there. Number 2, follow up. What I mean by follow up, it doesn't mean necessarily sell. It means stay in touch and stay in touch effectively. So whether it's online, by a call, sometimes all 3. And the last one is go back. Think about networking like a boomerang. Whichever one you decide to go into, you have to keep going back. If you don't keep going back, you're not networking, you're cold calling face to face.
Oh, well, I love that. Top 3 tips of the day. There's no doubt everyone can implement that tomorrow. Again, it's right place, right reason. Follow up and go back. Get out there. It is a new year. If you got one thing to do, get out there and start connecting, right? We are Smart Impressions, unlocking business relationships one connection at a time. But you got to make the difference, and you got to get off that chair, off that computer, and have real life human connections. Phil, I can't thank you so much for coming. It's really a pleasure to have you here. I can't wait to see what you guys are doing this year and be at the next networking event. Daniel, way to go for networking. Thanks for joining, everyone. Yeah. Thanks for everyone that joined us today on Smart Impressions. We are sponsored by Dripify, doing this every Tuesday. So see you next week. Have a fabulous, fabulous week, and happy networking. Bye-bye.